This is the encore presentation for the winning Diamond Dollars case competition, which we held yesterday morning. We had 15 teams, student teams enter, multiple teams from both Syracuse University and from Maggie Walker Governor's School in Richmond, Virginia, and then individual teams from a number of other universities, and also a high school team which won their room, Branson from California. So in any event, I wanted to give you a little background. We have in those 3 rooms, we pick a winner for each room, and then we do the hard work of trying to pick the overall winner of those 3 to present here. And we do this every year at the conference. This is the 13th year. I want to give you a little bit of a tease about the case, and then I'll turn it over to the winning team to make their presentation. So about 7 or 8 years ago, when I was working for a club, I remember having a conversation with one of their baseball execs about a player on the team. And he said, you know, I love this guy because one of the things I love about him is he's able to foul off pitches, and he extends at bats and he fouls off pitches like crazy. And I just think that, you know, we're really lucky that we've got this guy. It's really a great attribute. About a week or 2 later, I was having a conversation with another exec from the same club about the same player. And he said, you know, so-and-so just drives me crazy. He fouls balls off all the time. And he just, you know, never quite gets his pitch. And it just, I don't know what we're going to do with this guy. It just doesn't make sense. So it got me thinking. Took me a while, I guess, to get the case since that was 7 or 8 years ago. But I wanted to ask our student teams to create some sort of metric to put a value on any given foul ball based on perhaps count, based on location in the zone, based on movement, and any other factor that they thought deemed worthy. And I really wanted to understand, on a given foul ball, was that a win for the pitcher, or was that a win for the hitter? You know, you think about a 2-strike foul that's on the edges of the plate, that's probably a good thing for a hitter to be able to foul that ball off. He might not have been able to do a lot of damage, and he kept the at-bat alive. On the other hand, a middle pitch with a 3-1 count, not so sure. That's probably a pitcher win, right? But all of that is just conjecture, because right now I'm going to turn it over to the winning Syracuse team number 4, and their captain, Jonah Seuss. And he and his teammates will take you through the presentation. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Vince. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everyone at SABR. It means a lot to be able to come here and present this on the main stage. And of course, an excellent opportunity and incredible event. So without further ado, let's get started. On behalf of my team, Caitlin Kohlmeyer, Ann Rofe, Daniel Bears, and Alex Oppel, this is our project on analyzing the value of foul balls in Major League Baseball.
So when we first sat down to look at this, we wanted to look at some factors that we think would impact the value of a foul ball. We first thought about the count, 0 or 1 strikes versus 2 strikes. We thought with 2 strikes, there'd be a different effect on the value of foul ball because the batters get to see a different pitch. They get to try to make their plate appearance longer, get on base. We thought about the pitch quality and location, a good pitch versus a bad pitch, a pitch on the edge of the strike zone versus over the heart of the plate. We looked into that. We thought about the effects on the batter, timing up the pitches. They're able to get some feedback on their swing, and they're better able to understand the pitcher's arsenal with the more pitches that they see. So first, we wanted to quantify the value of a foul ball versus other outcomes. On the screen here, you can see that these are just a few outcomes out of the many things that can happen in the game. So we thought that a ball and a hit would obviously be more a positive value than a foul ball, and then a strike and an out would be more negative compared to the value of a foul ball, but this depends on the game situation. So a metric we wanted to use to quantify this is delta run expectancy. It is a pitch level statistic that quantifies the difference in run expectancy between pitches. On the bottom left of the screen, you can see an example with a 2-1 count with 1 out, a double is hit, and that is going to be a pretty positive delta run expectancy. Compared to the example on the bottom right, you see there's a 1-1 count with 2 runners on, a strike is thrown, and that is going to be a negative delta run expectancy.
So if we're looking at the distribution of delta run expectancy on foul balls from this past season, as you can see from this graph, all foul balls have a delta run expectancy of either 0 or a negative number. And this is because on foul balls on 0 or 1 strike counts, they're valued the same as a called strike or swinging strike. And because of the count, the strike in the count increases by 1. And on 2 strikes, this is valued at 0 as the number of strikes in the count does not change. And this is one of the limitations of delta run expectancy, as it doesn't take any other factors into account and only looks at outcome. So let's take this example on your screen. As you see, we have 2 examples, both in 2 strike counts. On your left, we have an elite stuff plus slider on the edge of the plate from Kyle Bradish. And on your right, we have a poor stuff plus slider hung over the middle of the plate from Patrick Corbin. And because sorry, Patrick Corbin caught a stray. But these are both valued at 0 by delta run expectancy because they're both 2 strike counts. But intuitively, we don't think this should be this is accurate, as we believe there's greater value to the offensive player for fouling off a tough pitch on the outer edge of the zone rather than fouling off a cookie down the middle of the plate that you should be doing damage on.
So that brings us to how we actually quantify our metric. Foul ball runs looks at the value of foul balls in terms of runs for the offensive team. So you can think of a positive value being better for the offense, while a negative value is going to be better for the pitching team. How we did this is we look at the actual value. That's going to be your delta run expectancy that we just kind of previously mentioned. Then we're going to subtract the predicted value. We're going to add in pitch characteristics and game state and other types of stats like that. And what that's going to allow us to do is see how a foul ball compares to what the alternative would be, the predicted alternative. Then what we would do is we add in the marginal effects. That gets back to what we talked about earlier. What's the value of actually fouling off a pitch in all of these situations? So for our modeling methodology, we first go into an individual pitch stuff model. Then we're going to look at those predicted delta run expectancy. Then we're going to get into our marginal effects, and all that's going to accumulate into our foul ball runs. So for looking at pitch quality, also known as the stuff factor, there are 2 main categories. First, the pitch attributes, and then the comparisons. We're going to start with the comparisons on the right side. Those are going to look at the previous pitch and your primary fastball. You're going to see a couple X's there. That first X, the blue X, that's going to be sort of your pitch tunnel. Think about that as if a pitch comes down that different avenue and they're thrown in back-to-back pitches, it can either break towards the batter in sort of a changeup or sinker movement, or it can move away in sort of a cutter slider. Now, you think there would be more added value to both of those pitches because they're coming from a similar tunnel. The pitcher doesn't, or the batter doesn't know which pitch is being thrown, and it makes both of those have a better stuff factor and make them more nasty. Same thing with a primary fastball. If you have an excellent primary fastball with a good curveball that kind of breaks off that pitch, you could think that that curveball is going to be even better because, you know, the batter has to take into account that excellent primary fastball. How we compare these is we use velocity, horizontal and vertical break, as well as spin axis and the pitch attributes. And then for the individual pitch we looked at, we also added in spin rate, release point, extension, as well as batter and pitcher handedness. So how we did this is we use a extreme gradient boosted model, also known as XG boost, with the dependent variable being the mean delta run expectancy of pitch type outcome. This is a little different than what you're going to see in all of our other models. What this does is it looks at the average value to get rid of a game state of a given outcome. So we'll say a ball. A ball has an average delta run expectancy of 0.03. Every single time there's a ball thrown, that is the value that is being regressed upon. We trained this on all 2022 pitches and applied it to 2023. And again, in our XG boost model, we use random search hyperparameter tuning. You can see on the importance graph that the difference from previous pitch and difference from fastball, as we intuitively thought, would be the most important parameters. Of course, all of the categories there are bunched together. Next up, you can see vertical movement, velocity, spin rate, those kind of pitch effects kind of coming in seconds.
So the model that Jonah just discussed calculates predicted stuff values for each pitch in 2023, and we incorporated both that along with pitch location metrics and game state measures to calculate our predicted delta run expectancy values. So as I just previously mentioned, the dependent variable in this model was delta run expectancy, and we trained this on all 2023 pitches and then applied it to foul balls, once again using XG boost and random search to improve model fit and avoid overfitting. Looking at the importance plot on the right, we can see that both the X and Y coordinate of pitches were extremely important, along with game state measures such as count and where runners were on base, and then stuff slots in right behind these.
So now that we've been able to compare kind of the actual result of a foul ball versus the prediction of what would have happened, we also wanted to look at kind of the effect of these foul balls on the rest of the plate appearance. So when a batter fouls off a ball in a 0-1 strike count, the actual delta run expectancy of that event is going to be negative, just like if it were a called strike or a swinging strike. However, intuitively, we thought that this foul ball should have a less negative effect because it allows the batter to gain feedback on their swing, kind of time up the pitches. So we thought that compared to just a called strike or a swinging strike, a foul ball would be a better outcome for the batter. Also, in a two-strike situation where the actual delta run expectancy value would be 0 because the count isn't changing, we thought that that foul balls would have the additional benefit because you're extending the at-bat. The batter gets to see more pitches, get more familiar with the pitcher, and the pitcher also, if they're not achieving the results they want, they might kind of throw the batter something that maybe isn't their best pitch. So this effect of just kind of extending the at-bat, seeing more pitches, we also expected to have a positive outcome on the at-bat for the batter. So first, looking at these early count foul balls, we used a linear regression with the delta run expectancy of the entire plate appearance as the dependent variable. We controlled for the batter and pitcher quality as well as the handedness matchup. And so we found that if strike one, if that's going to be a foul ball as compared to a called strike or a swing strike, that would result in an average increase in the delta run expectancy of the plate appearance of approximately 0.006. Similarly, looking at strike two, if strike two is going to be a foul instead of a called or swinging strike, that's going to increase the delta run expectancy by around 0.013. So kind of supporting our initial hypothesis that the batter just kind of being able to actually make contact as opposed to just watching a called strike or swinging and missing, that's going to provide them some benefit for the rest of the plate appearance. Also looking at two-strike foul balls, here's a distribution of the number of two-strike foul balls in plate appearances. Obviously, these two-strike foul balls aren't going to change the count, but we did think that it would provide some sort of benefit to the batter. You can see the distribution. Most plate appearances would have either 0 or 1 of these two-strike foul balls, but there would be some where the batter would just continually extend the plate appearance by fouling off more and more pitches. So looking at the effect of these two-strike foul balls, we again used a linear regression where we controlled for the batter and pitcher handedness, the batter and pitcher quality, as well as the number of balls in this two-strike count. So for looking at the first two-strike foul ball, when you compare the delta run expectancy of a plate appearance where there is 1 two-strike foul ball compared to plate appearances where the batter gets 2 strikes but doesn't foul off any pitches, there's going to be an average increase of approximately 0.011 in the delta run expectancy of this plate appearance. Looking at the second foul ball compared to 1-strike foul balls, as you can see with the marginal effects plot on the right, the second foul ball is going to have approximately a 0.002 increase in the delta run expectancy of the plate appearance. Similarly, for the third and the fourth two-strike foul ball, there's going to be these continued expected benefits for the batter of just fouling off more and more pitches. Beyond 4 foul balls, we didn't include that because the effect kind of seemed to level out. Plus, there's not a lot of sample size with that. But as you can see, it's kind of supporting our initial hypothesis that the batter just kind of being able to see more pitches is going to increase the likelihood that they're going to do something good with that plate appearance. And as a result, we added these effects to our foul ball runs value due to the added value that we would expect to see for the batter.
So to sum everything up so far, we have our foul ball runs, which is the actual delta run expectancy minus the predicted delta run expectancy that we create in the model with the stuff model, game state, and pitch location, as well as adding in the marginal effects that Danny just spoke about. Looking at the distribution of our foul ball runs, you can see that it's mostly normally distributed with the mean slightly less than 0, as well as a little spike of slightly above 0 to account for the 2-strike foul balls.
So here we've got a matrix which showed the average number of foul ball runs per each count. In this matrix, red denotes good foul ball run values, where blue denotes bad foul ball run values. And to no surprise, our metric highly values 2-strike foul balls, with this being especially emphasized in a 3-2 count. And this makes a lot of intuitive sense because with 2 strikes, if you foul off a pitch, you stay with 2 strikes. And then in a 3-2 count, if you were to foul off a pitch, you could still walk on the next pitch. And looking at the middle 2 boxes here, on a 2-1 and a 1-1 count, we see our most negative foul ball run values. And while one might think that we might see our most negative values in a 3-0 or 3-1 count because these are very hitter-friendly counts. If you foul off a pitch in these counts, you still move to 3-1 and 3-2 and still one pitch away from being walked. Whereas if you foul off a pitch in a 2-1 or 1-2 count, or excuse me, 2-1 or 1-1 count, you move to 2-2 or 1-2 respectively. So here we've got some strike zone heat maps broken down by 3 different counts. On the left, we've got an 0-0 count, in the middle an 0-2 count, and the right a 3-2 count. And these further emphasize the point that in general, fouling off pitches is better in 2-strike counts compared to non-2-strike counts, and even more so in a 3-2 count. But there are a couple other key takeaways here. When looking at these plots, we see more red on the edge of the strike zone compared to in both the middle and outside, implying that fouling off pitches that are in less ideal locations for batters is a good thing, because you might receive one on the next pitch that could be a ball or in the heart of the strike zone. And another key takeaway is when looking at a 3-2 count, we see such a heavy disparity between how foul ball runs are valued outside the strike zone versus inside the strike zone. And this is because in a 3-2 count, you can't add any more balls or strikes. So if you swing at a pitch outside the strike zone, you're eliminating the chance at a walk. Whereas if you foul off a pitch inside the strike zone, you possibly just avoided a strikeout. And here we've got 3 more heat maps broken down by 3 different stuff pitches. So on the left, we have an example of a poor stuff pitch, in the middle, an example of an average stuff pitch, and on the right, an example of a great stuff pitch. And we've already kind of emphasized the point that it's better to foul off pitches on the edge of the strike zone, which is why we see more red around those areas. But from moving left to right, from poor stuff to great stuff, we do observe less blue, implying that it is much better to foul off a pitch that is more nasty in the hopes of receiving your next pitch that would not quite be as good.
So now looking at the overall foul ball run leaderboards, we did our rankings by the average FBR per player after setting appropriate filters for the number of observations in order to prevent any skewed data or skewed results, sorry. On your left, we have our top 5 guys. You see names like Jerkson Profar and Lars Newbar. These are all very high contact guys who foul off a lot of pitches on the edge of the strike zone, don't chase a lot of foul balls on outside the zone, and do a good job at taking advantage of the pitches over the heart of the plate and not fouling them off. And on your right, we see some big names there like Aaron Judge and Freddie Freeman. We will get to those later. But looking at some of the other names like Eloy Jimenez, Brandon Drury, and Christopher Morel, these are all very high power, high chase rate, very undisciplined hitters who tend to chase a lot of foul balls outside of the zone, as well as not take advantage of a lot of their opportunities over the middle of the plate and fouling those off as well. Now looking at the 2-strike leaderboards, on your left in the top 5, we have guys like Mookie Betts and Brendan Nimmo. These are all very, again, high contact, low chase rate, high walk rate guys who do a very good job at working the count in order to benefit and draw a walk from there. And then on your right, in the bottom 5, we have guys like Brian Mountcastle, Gene Segura, and Harold Ramirez, who again are very high chase rate, very undisciplined hitters. And especially in the case of Gene Segura, when doing an analysis on him, along with his high chase rate, he had a very low whiff rate, meaning that he's just constantly chasing and fouling off pitches outside of the zone, resulting in lower foul ball run values.
So looking at some of the Ha-Seong Kim being our number 1 player and then Aaron Judge being our bottom player, Ha-Seong Kim falls in very well with that category Aaron was describing. This is someone who does not whiff a lot, does not chase a lot, and his 2-strike to non-2-strike foul ball ratio is in the 97th percentile, meaning that most of his foul balls are going to be with 2 strikes trying to work the count. This, of course, benefits them because that's a lot of the positive values, as where someone who fouls off not a lot of 2 strikes, again, is going to get hurt very negatively. Aaron Judge is a very interesting case. Him and Freddie Freeman kind of fall in a similar category where they stray from the common trend. But with Judge especially, what we see is that a lot of his foul balls with 2 strikes, high density in the center of the strike zone. You can think of that blue area that you saw earlier, especially in those 0-2 and 1-2 counts. He's a lot of foul balls in that area. And although he's not a big chase guy like a lot of the other ones are, he tends to struggle fouling off pitches that he really should be capitalizing on. That really hurts him here because he's a higher 71st percentile on the 2-strike to non-2-strike foul ball ratio. So again, the fact that that mean is in the first percentile means it's going to drag him all the way down to the bottom value. So kind of revisiting what we put on earlier with delta run expectancy, again, looking at Kyle Bradish and Patrick Corbin, but that foul ball run value goes from 0 up to 0.09 for Kyle Bradish, showing that fouling off that slider, that nasty slider and that bottom away, very favorable pitcher's pitch has a lot more value compared to Patrick Corbin, where that's a slider that's not as good. That's kind of over the center of the plate that a lot of batters should be capitalizing. So looking at things that we'd want to improve upon in the future, of course, have the ability to further tune hyperparameters on our models. We wanted to look a little bit more into comparing with simulation-based methodologies, trying to include batter effects because we were batter independent. And of course, examine the effect of foul balls later in the game, looking at relievers and more high leverage situations. That's all we have. We're going to open it to any questions. Thank you all so much.
That was really great. I had a question about how the leaderboards and how we noticed great hitters like Judge and Freeman at the top of the negative foul balls. Are they getting penalized because of their high xwOBAs, because xwOBA is like contributing to their like run expectancies? And so is a foul ball from Aaron Judge or Freddie Freeman getting treated as more negative because it's like taking away an Aaron Judge or Freddie Freeman xwOBA?
Yes. So we decided to keep it batter independent, so a situation like that would not occur. So where a foul ball, pretty much depending on the batter, that's going to be held consistent. We looked into some batter effects, but again, it really penalized those top hitters. So again, this is completely independent of batter effects, yet Judge and Freeman still find our way to the bottom of the leaderboard, which we thought was very interesting.
I liked your slide 19, if you can go back to that. That encapsulates and summarizes it real quick without having to go through all the minutia. All this is after the fact. How do you apply this? What do you do with it if you were a manager? What strategical application do you have?
Well, I would say one of the big takeaways is like, I mean, clearly looking at it, you see such a big disparity between 2 strikes and not 2 strikes. So if you think of a guy like Anthony Rizzo, who chokes up with 2 strikes and hits a lot and probably hits a lot more foul balls because of that, might be something that teams could look to explore more.
So start telling Aaron Judge to choke up.
I didn't say that, but maybe some other players.
Hi, great presentation. You explained about Aaron Judge. What about Freddie Freeman? Do you have a theory? I mean, Judge was swinging and missing or fouling off balls right in the middle. How about Freeman?
Yeah, so Freeman falls in a very similar category, not to the extent of Judge. That's why he's a little bit lower, where he just has a high concentration of like not so quality pitches that he's fouling off in the center of the strike zone, which kind of goes with the Freddie Freeman mentality, where he's going to keep fouling off pitches until he gets the one he's looking for. That gets penalized a little bit here, which is something that we'd look to improve upon in the future. But yeah, he was someone who had a lot of high, like low quality pitches in the center of the strike zone, maybe sliders and stuff that he wasn't exactly looking for, that'd be fouling off trying to get his pitch.
A simple question. This is a great presentation, by the way. Where do you find, like, where can we find data on like who fouls out the most, and maybe granular data on what pitches? If anyone else knows here, because I've always wanted to see that.
Yeah, so I mean, all of this was done from pitch by pitch data. So we kind of used that and aggregated it to get more of the, you can filter by foul balls and use that to figure out who fouls out at certain rates and fouls ball off at certain rates. So yeah, we use pitch by pitch. There's a bunch of public resources there available.
What could you tell us which one? Like, if I just wanted to see who leads MLB in foul balls and 2 strikes, where could I go?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a Fangraphs leaderboard. You'd have to ask some of the Fangraphs people. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'd say if not, some quick data aggregation from any of the pitch by pitch data.
So your inputs were foul balls that ended up out of play?
Yes, so good point. We filtered out any foul balls that resulted in outs and kind of treated them in as outs. These were only foul balls, because a foul tip into the catcher's mitt, we considered that just like a normal strike and a strikeout. So and any then foul balls that went out of play were included. But foul balls that resulted in outs with a fielder catching it, I believe we excluded.
How do you think things would change as far as conclusions or some of the knock-on effects on the numbers if fouls that resulted in outs were included?
Yeah, definitely. I think it could definitely have some effects, especially, because those would be much higher negative delta run expectancies. And that's why we tried to account for that, because we thought it would skew the results in either direction. But we definitely looking at in the future, thinking about how the quality of a foul ball, that was something that we said that we would love to try to look into in the future.
And I guess also park effects, like a foul ball in Oakland might be different than elsewhere.
Yes, very much so.
And just to further emphasize a point regarding Freeman and Judge, I mean, they are fouling off pitches in the middle of the strike zone, which is punishing them in this metric, but they could also be missing them. So people that are missing them are being punished for that in this metric.
Nice toss. Very well done. I'm interested in sort of the deeper application of your conclusions. And so presuppose that you have complete control of an organization. What changes would you make to the starting lineup for that team? So that's one way to think about application. Or another way would be, would it change the way that you value the players on the screen? So for instance, would you pay Jerks and Profar more than you would pay Christopher Morel because of what you've discovered? And then the next step of that, how would the application of your analysis impact the fan experience?
Those are awesome questions. I'd say one thing I definitely look at on this slide, the 2-strike to non-2-strike foul ball ratio, that allows us to make a lot of conclusions looking between these two leaderboards to say, okay, where does a player excel? Do they swing too much in these non-2-strike counts, or do they do an effective job? Someone like a Brandon Belt can be more of a power hitter, but get to those 2-strike counts and foul those off. That gives him a lot of value, I'd say. Same thing with someone like Ha-Seong Kim, someone that has a great discipline for the strike zone, that should be valued in some sort of sense. I think, when thinking about paying different players, it comes into a lot of different contextual situations as well. Foul ball is a great supplementary tool to a lot of different things, like how well they can hit, how well they hit for power, contact, field. So I think it should be an added component. It depends, of course, on the team on how much you actually value that, because most of these delta run expectancy values are very low. So it means that this does have value, but it doesn't have much significant value, as much as you can think of a double, which had like a 0.3 rather than a 0.03. So I'd say definitely in contextual settings, can help you think. Big Ha-Seong Kim believer. So of course, that's someone that you can think of maybe great in these situations. And again, it tells you a lot more about that hitter mentality and approach that you can't really quantify in many different ways.
Thank you all for your presentation. Just a scenario, say Aaron Judge is in a 3-1 count and the pitcher throws a ball in the dirt, should be ball 4, but Judge swings at it, foul tips it somehow, get bad foul ball. It should have been a walk, should have taken his base, but he now is in a 3-2 count. Say then the next pitch, he actually hits a home run. Now the bad foul ball kind of becomes a good foul ball in a way. Did the data that you guys look at, did that take that into consideration, or is that even something that you guys would be able to consider?
Yeah, so that's something we talked a lot about and tried to figure it out. That was like partial our reason for the marginal effects, and I can let Danny talk more about this. But again, it comes into how much value do you get from the rest of that bat, and that tries to get quantified there. Danny, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just say that, I mean, we kind of wanted to look at each event independently. So like that 3-1, the foul ball that should have been a walk, I would still consider that a bad pitch because or a bad decision, because when he's making that kind of decision to swing, he really doesn't know what he's getting with the next pitch. I mean, obviously you can look back in hindsight and say, oh, that resulted in a home run, but it's far more likely that it would have resulted in a strikeout or some other sort of out as opposed to a free base. So for that reason, we kind of wanted to keep it separate of what actually happened and look at just kind of the values inherent in what in that pitch itself.
Hey, great job, guys. One thing that I instinctively thought of when looking at this was how, like, what implications this might have on lineup construction. So maybe it would be more beneficial for me instinctively to line my lineup with guys at the bottom that are really good at this. So like take Ha-Seong Kim, for example, if you have him batting towards the bottom of the lineup, he fouls off a lot of really productive pitches from the pitcher's perspective. And then immediately after his at-bat is over, you have someone like Tatis or Machado coming up that might be able to capitalize on those pitches that aren't being made to them. Did you do any exploration into how position in the lineup might affect this, or is that something that you might do in the future?
That is an excellent idea. I definitely think we'll look at it in the future because again, I can 100% agree with you. Putting someone like Ha-Seong Kim, frustrating the pitcher, about to go into an at-bat with Fernando Tatis Jr., you're putting Tatis in an advantage there. So I think that's a great point. We couldn't look at it in this context, but it's definitely an application that we'd look for in the future. Cool. I think that's all we have time for. So we'll wrap it up there. Thank you all.